Why white men often lead the fight against social justice. Hey, it's Prince of Queens. And when looking at Evergreen College's Brett Weinstein on Dave Rubin today, and hearing him speak about how he wants to form an alliance with Jordan B. Peterson, it occurred to me that when social justice warriors see this, they will obviously use that to ignite their confirmation bias and say, "See, it's always the fucking white dudes." It's their favorite weapon, really, as we all know. The second people are sick of their shit, they say, "I don't care what white straight men think of me." Even if there's numerous people who aren't white straight men who share their sentiments. Those people will just be considered Uncle Toms, of course. So, I've had this thought numerous times, and maybe it is the case that the big figureheads in the anti-SJW cultural libertarian or skeptic sphere do tend to be white men. Let's assume for the sake of this video that it is mainly white straight men who are opposed to intersectional feminism or are at least leading the charge. If so, why is this exactly? Why is it really? Well, we obviously know what the fourth wave intersectional feminist social justice warriors would claim the reason is. They'd say that white straight men have the most privileges or unearned advantages in life, and therefore they are doing their best to fight against change so that they don't have to share space with racial minorities, women, and LGBT people. The premise here is that white straight men must be fairly lousy at whatever it is that they do, and the only reason they got to wherever they are is not because they are intelligent, talented, and hardworking, but rather because they knew the secret white guy handshake that one gives after an interview that will get them hired above more qualified minority or female applicants. Obviously, that would sound like an offensive exaggeration to a full-blown SJW, and they would claim it is more nuanced than that. But the SJW would also very likely go on to claim that they have been passed over for jobs in favor of less qualified white hires, as if they know exactly everything about who was hired, what their qualifications were, and how exactly the person who did get hired interviewed in comparison to them. It was simple racism, supposedly. You see, SJWs are people with a habit of claiming that racism and sexism is a completely nuanced issue when it suits them, but they are extremely eager to label something as simple black and white racism or sexism when it is convenient for them. You better believe it. But probably more than that, when social justice warriors claim that white men are privileged, and that's why it's always white men who object to social justice, what they are really doing is projecting their own wanting for unearned advantages onto straight white men, because white straight men almost unanimously don't expect anything to be handed to them based on their gender or skin color. But various minorities and women very often do want precisely that. Again, the SJW would get mad at me for saying that because I am showing them the mirror. They'd claim that they want to end discriminatory hiring practices that privilege cis people ahead of trans people, men over women, and white people over people of color, hoping to get the university faculty to around 13% African American like they tried to at Mizzou. But how are they really going to do that? Well, by creating discriminatory hiring quotas. Basically, no matter how much they might try to sugarcoat it. But no! Social justice implies achieving justice for marginalized communities that have been historically disenfranchised and still suffer from the legacy of slavery, genocide, and patriarchy. Okay, Jezebel, how are we going to actually make sure? that 13% of all of the faculty at the University of Mizzou is black. How? By only hiring black applicants until it evens out? By firing white staff members? At which point does social justice become social revenge? Now, I'm not saying that it wouldn't be cool if universities or any working environment were able to hire and employ minorities of all varieties at a rate proportional or maybe even sometimes a bit higher than proportionally to their segment of the general population. But the bottom line is this. The only way to achieve this is with discrimination. If it happened naturally, that would be great. But if it won't, you have to use discrimination. And who gets discriminated against first? Well, it tends to be white straight men. And then who ends up speaking out about this? Chances are, you guessed it, it's straight white men. Often ones like Jordan B. Peterson who have tenure and therefore the luxury of being able to speak out against these types of things. Might racial minorities, women, and LGBT people speak out against these things? Sure, and they do. I'm one of them. But we end up being attacked maybe even more viciously than the straight white guys because we are thought of as traitors and then ostracized from our own communities. So few speak up. That said, straight white guys are put in a position where they realize that no matter what they do, they are going to be attacked or discriminated against in plain sight, unapologetically, at which point these straight white guys sit back and watch their opportunities dwindle with the knowledge that no matter how hard they work, they will often be disqualified from success in numerous fields based on being a straight white man. And if they do succeed, they'll be attacked then too by the jealous, hater-assed SJWs. Or they can speak out about it and hope for the best. So they fucking do, because they were already between a rock and a hard place anyway, due to the fact that they don't have the goddamn luxury of ignoring an entire massive ideology of millions of people who hate them just for being born a white male and being heterosexual. I'll put it like this. When people say, "Why is it always the white dudes that complain about social justice and intersectional feminism?" That's the same logic as saying, "Why is it always the black guys complaining about police brutality?" Why the fuck do you think it is? That's all I have to say for this video. Drop me a comment. Help me out on Patreon if you want more from me. Hit the bell button next to the subscribe buttons because people are getting unsubscribed from my fucking channel. And stay tuned.